Hello, I'm your host Jim McLean. Welcome back to another episode of the BanterFlix movie review show here on NvTv. Let's see what movies we'll be talking about tonight. We'll be reviewing Transformers Rise of the Beast, which is out in cinemas now. And our pick of the streams is Avatar: The Way of Water, which is available to watch on Disney+. So that's what I've lined up for you this week, and joining me in the studio is local filmmaker and 1/4 of The Sixth Sense, Bill Taylor.
Hi Jim, nice to be back.
Bill, it's great to have you back. We haven't had you on the show for a little while. The last time we had you on, you were rather beardy. Now you're clean shaven. I'd like to think that's just for the show, but I don't think that's the case. It's warm. We're in the middle of a heat wave. What else would we want to do other than sit and talk about movies? So I think without any further ado, let's move on and talk about some movie news.
Oh yeah, you were supposed to be here at 5.
All right, whatever.
Whatever?
Wow.
Whatever?
So are you like a cow or a Dalmatian?
I am the Spot. That's not funny.
Don't do that.
Miles' grades are pretty good. A in AP Physics.
That's my little man.
And a B in Spanish.
What?
Okay.
Miles,
Are you trying
mira, eso es imposible.
I gotta go. All right, bye.
So that's a look at Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, not multiverse. I apologise for last week, viewers, but we're going to be talking about that very briefly in the movie news, because the film has done fantastically well at the box office. In its second week of release, Bill, it's already surpassed its predecessor. It's earned over 500 million at the box office, and it's also now supplanted The Dark Knight as the top comic book movie on IMDb, whether you throw a lot of, heft behind that achievement or not. So very quickly, I know we're going to be talking about a few films that have been released. I know we talked about Spider-Verse last week. Were you a fan of Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse?
No. Sorry to burst everybody's bubble. I just thought it was too long, and it took too long to get to where it was, or where it wanted to get to, and it just, the animation style kind of jarred with me for the first 20 minutes. I saw it in 2D, but I honestly thought, am I missing glasses here? Am I supposed to have them on? Whatever way the backgrounds were and some of the foregrounds, it made it look as if I stumbled into 3D viewing by mistake. But no, I don't know. I think I'm multiversed out. I think there's too much. Need to dial it back a bit and start telling stories again would be really nice.
Yeah, I do agree with you, and I know viewers, if you watched last week, we had Aaron Flanagan from the comic book guys, and we were both really positive about the film. And one thing we, in particular, were quite positive about was that animation lent itself more to the concept of the multiverse, the Spider-Verse in this case, as opposed to live action, where it's sometimes some pretty shoddy CGI. And I know we've talked about this in previous shows where a lot of CGI artists are talking about the pressure they're being put under. And I thought, in all honesty, the animation lent itself to exploring the concept, because in this film, it's not a spoiler to say that in Spider-Verse, we have a Tyrannosaurus Spider-Man. Why? Because the multiverse, and I felt animation just suited it better. You feel differently, particularly you weren't a fan of the animation. One thing I did wanted to ask you was the audio, because a lot of talk online about the audio for Across the Spider-Verse. People have been complaining about the mix between the soundtrack and the audio, to the point where the studio are now saying they are releasing a new version of the audio. It's going to be sent to cinemas. Part of me does wonder, is this just a cynical ploy to get us to go back and see the film to see if, well, did I have issues with the sound or not, or what's this new sound going to compare to my first viewing?
I had no problems with the audio at all. It didn't wake me up. It's fine.
So you're not excited by, I think it's next year, we're going to have Beyond the Spider-Verse?
No. I'll probably not bother, to be honest. I'll watch it. I'll not go to the cinema to watch it. I'll wait till it comes on, on streaming or something. I mean, I liked the first one. The first one I thought was really good, but the second one, I just thought it was, is it a word, tropey? And just, everything seemed to be a meme or something. And it's just, yeah, we've got all this. Loki did this, and, you know, Ant-Man did this, and, you know, come on, tell a story.
But I know just before we move into the first review of tonight, I know there's a sad bit of movie news you wanted to talk about.
Yeah, unfortunately, veteran actor Treat Williams died in a motorcycle accident earlier this week. I was a particularly big fan of his. I remember watching Things to Do in Denver When You're Dead when it came out late 90s, very Tarantino-esque sort of story, and he was a memorable character called Critical Bill, and sort of followed him from there. And then Deep Rising is always a guilty pleasure.
I don't think there's anything to be guilty about enjoying a film like Deep Rising, Bill. 98 classic with a capital C. I absolutely love that film. I did actually, a couple of months ago, rewatch it. I don't know if it was on television or I purposely sought it out. And yeah, the CGI has dated, but it's a lot of fun.
It is. It's Stephen Sommers, isn't it?
Yeah, viewers, if you have never seen Deep Rising, seek it out. And sadly, for sad reasons, now with the passing of Treat Williams. But look, that's the movie news section of the show over and done with. I think we shall move on and talk about some films that are in the cinema.
In the end, everything you cared for will be consumed.
Maybe there's another way to save our home.
You've never faced anything like this. Let them come.
So that's a look at Transformers Rise of the Beasts. Out in cinemas last week. We're getting a chance to talk about it now. When I thought we were going to be talking about the film, I thought, who else? Because I know you're a big Transformers fan, Bill. I know you are someone who's always championed the original animated movie. We're earlier on when we were talking about the Spider-Man Across the Multiverse, which is an animated movie. So this is a sequel to Bumblebee, which was out a couple of years ago, prequel to the Michael Bay films. Although, is it not? I do think this is somewhat of a soft and very quiet reboot for the series that is going to largely bypass what we've seen before. So I don't even know how we go about setting up the explanation for the plot. Do you want to have a go? Normally it's my realm, but do you want to set up for the viewers a little bit about what Transformers Rise of the Beasts is all about?
Okay, it's a bit of a challenge. Basically, an artifact is found, as always is with these films. They require a MacGuffin of sorts. An artifact is found that draws an evil to planet Earth, putting the Earth at peril. And it's up to Optimus Prime and his band of Autobots, assisted by the Maximals, which are another species of transforming robots, but they transform into animals, and they're led by Optimus Primal. So they have to reconcile their differences, join forces, and defeat the big bad.
Perfectly done. You see, I knew there was a reason why we got you on the show this week. So this is out. So as we say, this is kind of now, I think we're at the 7th installment in the franchise, if we exclude the animated movie, which I've already mentioned, I love too. I grew up with that series, and I have fond memories of watching the animated movie. I was not a massive fan of what Michael Bay did with the series. He gave it a leery eye. There was a lot of ogling at actresses like Megan Fox, particularly in the first 2 films. That was uncomfortable. It was a film that was aimed at teenage boys and never really felt like it was holding a candle that much to the original animated series and the toys, I suppose, as well. So now we have this outing. We have Michael Bay only as a producer. He's no longer directing. It's Steve Caple Jr., who directed Creed 2, is taking charge this time. As I've mentioned, it's a sequel of sorts to Bumblebee, which I loved, because there was an installment in the series that took away all the sleaziness from Michael Bay's films. Now we have this sequel. What do you think?
I really enjoyed it. Right from the opening, the opening is really familiar to people, to me anyway. I mean, I literally cheered in my chair when I saw what I saw. I don't want to spoil it for people. It is, if you liked the Transformers the movie, the 1984 cartoon, you're kind of going to get a kick out of this, just because of who's in it. The thing I really, I think you covered it. The original films from Michael Bay, they don't follow the storyline from the cartoons. It's a totally different, as far as I'm aware, it's a totally different timeline, which kind of suited that style. It doesn't suit this. Bumblebee is more akin to Generation 1 of Transformers, and this sequel kind of fits in with that. And I'm a Generation 1 fanboy at heart, so the characters in this I'm kind of familiar with already, and then it throws in the mix of the Beast Wars stuff, which I'm not totally familiar with, because this is late, sort of like mid to late 90s, and I discovered like different things, different tastes back then. So I'm not as au fait with that. So it was nice to be introduced to these new characters. But yeah, I mean, it's just it's big stompy robots. What more do you want? That's what it is. It's robots fighting. Love it.
Which is what it should be. I have to be honest. I mean, I love the fact that sleaziness that the Michael Bay films were filled with is gone. And it's coming back to the point you made about Spider-Man across the multiverse. I just think the actual narrative itself, the structure, it is so generic. When there's nothing there to get annoyed about, you're just left with nothing more than robots hitting each other. I will say this though, at least for this installment, as opposed to Bumblebee, which I still think is the high mark of the live action Transformers movies so far, I think the antagonists here, the human kind of antagonists, are at least a little bit more interesting. We have the actor who was in Hamilton is playing the lead. I think he's much more engaging than what we've seen in the past, but it still has that central problem with the narrative. The smashy, crash, bang, wallop, rinse, repeat stuff is, we've seen that all before, and that's just, a testament of how far CGI is improving. I still think it's a little bit laboured and cliche when we're in the talky bit. You're looking at me like you disagree.
It's not that I disagree. I get that, but it's like, it's a film about big stompy robots. So it's never going to be Shakespeare. It's, it is what it says on the tin. It's never going to get really highbrow. I mean, it's just explosions all around you in 3D surround sound. It's robots beating and pacing each other with all sorts of sci-fi weapons. It's one of those films, it wears what it is on the sleeve. It's exactly, you get what you're paying for. Yeah, Bumblebee, I thought, carried the franchise in a better direction. Although I will say that Dark of the Moon, the third one that Michael Bay did, I think it's fantastic. It's just, it goes from 0 to 20, and then it goes further even more. I find that film a hell of a lot, there's a lot more big stompy robotness in it And again, that's what we're buying into.
Well, look, I can't say too much because my first ever date with my lovely wife, then when I first got to properly meet her, was to go see the first Transformers movie. So we'll always have that connection. I'm just not as big a fan of those films. And I think by the time we're now at this installment, my patience is wearing thin. I'm more critical, and when there's nothing there to get annoyed about, there's less there for me. I know we're gonna have to move on. There's a revelation in the final moments.
Yeah.
I will admit, here now, in front of you, Bill, I did laugh at that revelation.
Right.
But I don't want to be too spoilerific, because the film's only been released in cinemas. As someone who clearly is a fan,
Yeah.
was that just for you a moment of pure fan service?
Well, no. I mean, you could say, I suppose, I can't really say, we're not going to tell you what it is, but for me, as a kid in the 80s, with toys from lots of different lines that are now part of the one manufacturer and one, rights IP holders, I'm pretty excited because I'm pretty sure I know what's coming down the line, and that really excites me. And it's taken them this long to realise that people like me out there exist that want that franchise on the big screen. We may actually be getting it at some point, and I can't wait.
Well, look, I don't want to spoil too much, but we can safely say the Barbie Transformers crossover we've all been waiting for, it might just happen. But look, I think with that, we'll move away from the big screen, because I feel you could easily geek out for the full half hour about Transformers. I think we'll move away from the big screen and we'll go to something that's streaming at home.
The way of water connects all things. Before your birth and after your death.
This is our home!
I need you with me.
So that's a look at Avatar, The Way of Water. It's streaming now on Disney+. Bill, I'm going to ask you right from the get-go, did you watch this specifically for the show, or did you see this on the big screen when it was released earlier in the year?
I saw it on the big screen.
As did I. It's now on Disney+. It has been available to rent or buy for a while on VOD services. Now it's on Disney's streaming service. This is the sequel to James Cameron's uber-successful Avatar, the long-awaited sequel. From what we've read anyway, this is the first of many installments. We're going to get, I think Cameron's promised us 5 outings in total. I was saying to our producer just before we started to record, I think Cameron's ultimate plans is to bring the Na'vi to Earth. It's whether or not, I suppose, the box office will justify that many installments for that to happen. But when this was out in the cinemas, went to see it. You were mentioning earlier on about 3D, 2D, bog standard 2D cinema screen setting, 3 hours, 20 minutes, I think it clocks in at. I enjoyed it when it was out in the cinema. Watching it at home, I had a slightly different experience, I'll be honest, because you're watching something for the second time, you're a bit more critical. But what did you think of Avatar 2?
Honestly, it felt like I was watching the first film over again. How long ago was Avatar? It was about 13, 14 years ago. I went to see Avatar. It was out at Christmas. It was that really bad December with the snow. Really, it was like snow there for 2 weeks. I went to see it on a Friday of my Christmas dinner, my work's Christmas dinner, right? I was being slagged off left, right, centre because I was leaving all these people drinking to go and watch a 3-hour film. I went to see that film in the cinema because I thought, this is cinematic history. This film is going to be around for a long time. And the stuff James Cameron was involved in at that time was absolutely breathtaking. I went to see that film open mouthed, only needed the edge of the seat. 3D was probably the best at that time, and it was such an amazing experience. I'm glad I missed that Christmas dinner. No hangover. This time round, it's like, can you show me something new? Now, I'm a big fan of big stompy robots, right? Newsflash. The first film has really good stompy robots. This film has crabs. And I was like, right, so this is the design. These are the things. It's like, you know, I just wanted to tap out. There's so many silly things that happen in this film. And I don't know whether it's deliberate. It's like that bit in Prometheus where Charlize Theron should run to the left or the right. It's like, do humans not learn anything from experience? That's the whole point of, you know, Batman. The whole reason we fall down is so then we learn to get back up again. It's like, they're just doing the same thing. And it's the same film with blue people. And it's, no, I didn't really enjoy the experience the second time around.
I was more enthusiastic about it when I first saw the film. I think the pacing, despite its runtime, is quite well. There's a lot of stuff with, I'm sorry viewers, I know it's not the right phrase, space whales. I know there's a lot of stuff with space whales that are there. Some of them, actually, I have to say, are quite shocking. And we kind of think of kind of whaling that goes on here on Earth. I mean, I think that's a deliberate move by Cameron to shock us as viewers and to be precious about the fish and animals, the way of putting it in the sea that right now. All those things I admire about it, but watching it second time around, I didn't have the issues that you have where it's the same film. I just find it's that sense of, right, okay, we've just done 3 hours, over 3 hours, and we're pretty much kind of where we were before. Am I that excited for Avatar 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, it would seem, if Cameron has his way? That's my problem. I mean, in the cinema there and then, getting lost in the spectacle of it, I enjoyed it. Visually, Avatar The Way of the Water is stunning. I just think that the plot is just, it's not repetitive of what we saw before. It's just a bit cliched. This time around we have younger children who I find were a bit replaceable. I got confused as to who was who and who was there. We have Sigourney Weaver character. She's back, but she's playing somebody else. I feel that will be revealed in further installments. I don't know. Enjoyed it at the time on the big screen. Rewatching it at home, I thought it was perfectly serviceable. Well, but I don't know. You seem to be more negative than I am.
Right, Jim Cameron has a history of making films that are allegories for things that went wrong on the planet, right? Aliens was essentially about the Vietnam War. Avatar, the first Avatar, is fairly similar, actually, about the treatment of the American Indians. This one, it's like, right, I get it. This is an ecological disaster film. I get it. You don't need to hit me in the face with it. I get it. There's very little character growth in the film. I don't know who I'm supposed to be following. Who's the main character here? Is it Jake Sully again? In this film, I don't think it is. Is it the wife? I don't think it is. It's one of the kids. And that's one of the things that really annoys me now, getting older, is films about kids. So,
Speaking as a parent,
yeah, it's like, no, they've got nothing to say. It's just, I don't know. I tapped out quite early on with this. It's like, right, Jim, what are you trying to tell me with this film? Because the whole point, for me anyway, the whole point of science fiction is to shine a lens or look at something through a new lens and make us look at things in a different way, to hopefully make us act in a different way. So it's, you know, it's supposedly, for me anyway, it's supposedly to help the human race become better in some shape or fashion. In this film, I just got really annoyed. It's like, I know what you're trying to say here, Jim. I know that the oceans on Earth are wrecked. What do you want me to do about it? You know, do you want me to spend billions and billions of pounds generating a way to motion capture people so that I can tell a political message? you know, you've told this story before. Surely your efforts would be better used somewhere else. And now we're getting more of the same. We're going to have fire people. We're going to have, I don't know, jelly people. We're going to have all sorts of manner of new Navi stories to tell. And to be honest, no. Come on, tell me something else.
Well, just a few things. I want to clarify for the viewers. When you keep saying about Jim, tell me something, or tell me this, it's not me, it's James Cameron.
It's James Cameron.
But picking up on what you said, and I know we're going to have to wrap up, and I feel this is a conversation we could have maybe another time on the podcast version of the show. But the fact that, yes, the films are about themes, and the ecological themes are very prevalent within this film. Do you think the problem then is it takes so long for these films to be completed because of the fact they're so CGI heavy, the special effects that are involved, that the fact that if this was more of a straightforward live action film, we'd have probably had 2-3 Avatar films, maybe 10, 15 years ago, where maybe those themes might have been more on the nose, they might have been more topical. And not to say that they're not now, but I just feel that the discussions that the film is having, it just feels like you're a bit late to the party. Do you think that's then ultimately the problem, the fact that they are so technically time consuming? They've consumed James Cameron's life, it seems. I mean, these are the projects. He's quite happy now just to make stories, it seems, on Pandora. He doesn't seem to have an interest to go back to the Terminator franchise or the Aliens franchise, or to do anything really inherently new. This is where he wants to tell his stories. But do you think then that's a problem, the fact that these ideas he's having, they might be great when he has them, but it takes so long then to make these films?
Yeah, you're probably right. I mean, the work that the man puts in and the effort and the hours, the guy probably doesn't sleep. His contribution to cinema, it can't be measured. It just can't. The guy is an absolute, he's at the top of the tree in terms of advancing the technology. He's like modern day Hitchcock. But, I mean, you can't regurgitate the same stuff over and over again. And yes, you know, the cleaning the oceans is definitely a worthy story, but it is it's very in your face right from the start. I mean, you mentioned the whaling and things like that. I mean, yes, right, I get what you're getting at. I understand that, but me as a, you know, you're trying to entice people into the cinema to give them a message, and what are they going to do with that message? You know, we can't stop that. We're just individuals. You know, surely he would be better telling that message to Congress, or, you know, going around the world as an ambassador than, you know, flubbing about in the swimming pool. I don't know. And then the other point as well, you know, one of the central themes in the film is about family. Vin Diesel's got that covered.
Yeah, that's true. Nobody likes family just as much as Vin Diesel does. Look, Bill, we're going to have to leave it there, because I get a sense we could easily have you go off on an angry rant for the full episode about James Cameron and Avatar 2, but we shall leave it there. But before we wrap up this week's show, let's have a look at the films we'll be looking at next week.
Maddie, you can't outrun the cops!
I can't lose my license.
What? Oh, guys! Yeah!
So that's a look at No Hard Feelings and Charlie Chaplin's The Kid, which is being re-released on DVD by Criterion. Bill, either of those two films grabbing your interest?
I'll probably watch No Hard Feelings. Jennifer Lawrence, I like her from X-Men. She was very good in Mystique.
Well, you'll have to wait till next week to see what we think of those films, but that's all we've time for in this week's show, so all that's left for me to do is thank you very much, Bill.
Thanks for having me.
And thanks very much for watching at home. We'll be back next week with another episode. Hopefully it won't be as warm on next week's recording, but for now, until then, goodbye.